often see people in consultations who have done so many therapies, so many supplements, so many protocols, have gone to so many practitioners, and they feel like they either have not gotten any better, no help, no assistance, or they've actually deteriorated over time. So if someone continues to spin their wheels, you're right. You are missing something. You're right. You are not hitting on something that's really impactful and foundational for you to recover. But it's usually not what people think. By the way, I'm not here to minimize this search because I had the same search. I'm here to speak from experience in my own healing journey years ago, and also seeing people go through this again and again and again. And I'm trying to help people free themselves from this search for 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. I've seen people who say, I've been sick for 20 years. And then they'll end up in the conventional model and they'll be taking pharmaceuticals, thyroid medication, or they've done antibiotics throughout this whole process. So things get really, really dicey, and it's in the weeds for what's really going on. A lot of times less is more. And something I want to point out too, what you take is never as important as what you do, meaning the therapies you do, and that's never going to be as important as how you do it. Okay, that's the better way to put it. So what do I mean? So what you take, what you're just taking supplementally, is never as important as what you do, meaning the therapies, getting out in the sun, grounding, sauna, like therapies, right? Things you're actually doing in your life. That's more medicine than taking something orally. But then how you do any of that trumps it all. So that means if someone, like I was saying in the beginning here, if someone's always in this frantic state, if how they are trying to heal is very frantic and stressed and the world's out to get them and their body is broken, that's going to trump everything you're doing. Luckily, what happens is people will start there. They'll start in that frantic energy. And once they start doing some things really well, like when they come to me and we do really proper drainage protocols, nice and gentle, tweaking things as the feedback of the body comes in from that individual, they will find that things start to shift a little bit. So then they'll start gaining that confidence that, okay, my body is self-healing. And that's a normal process and a normal stepping stone process that happens. So they start to get out of that frantic energy and they become more embodied in the process. That's what really happens and should happen, for lack of a better word. That's a very natural progression. So if that's not happening for you, let's return to some of the basics. Let's talk about what some of those basics are. So first of all, since I'm obsessed with drainage, I'm obsessed with detoxification, I'm obsessed with really supporting your drainage and your excretion pathways, because that's how bodies heal physically, right? Whenever you get poisoned, whenever you take something that the body doesn't want, it has to purge it out. So if you have issues with purging it out, if your kidneys are not functioning properly, your liver, your colon, your small intestine, your whole GI, if your breath is impeded, your lungs are not properly functioning, right? This is another drainage pathway. And if your lymphatics all stagnated and things just are not moving, and they all work interconnectedly, if that's not moving, you have to gently support that over time. You got to do drainage, but you have to do it in an intelligent way, and you have to do it based on what your needs are for you. And that's why working with a practitioner is helpful, because they can help guide you through what does it seem your body is going to respond best to. What is the frequency? What is the dose of that? Okay, so there's that. This is a big one, the tincture of time. Time is important for your body to heal. You need time, but you need time in which you're not creating more burdens and poisoning yourself further. So for example, someone is having an issue for a year, and then they're told they have Lyme disease because they've gone to all these kinds of practitioners. They've done no real drainage. They haven't been consistent with really foundational things. They're told they have Lyme. They're told they need antibiotics for a month or 2 months or 3 months or sometimes even more. Or even worse, they need IV antibiotics, right? So what happens is, if you would have just done some foundational things for a good period of time, for a year or two or so, takes time once you get to a tipping point of having chronically being unwell. What happens is you would have healed, you would have recovered over a period of time, as so long as all you did was really support the body foundationally and you understand how bodies heal. So you didn't get in the way of that. But then people will go, they get impatient and they go and they take the antibiotics. Oh my gosh, then we got to come back and we got to heal from the poisoning that you just did. So you get in the way of the time, right? Bodies take time to heal. Change the story, choose your narrative. Let me give you an example. You got to know what's helpful for your story. What kind of good does it do if every day I walked outside, looked up at the sky, see the chemtrails, see the geoengineering, and I said to myself, that's why I'm sick. That is exactly why I'm sick, or a huge contributor for why I'm sick. And so I guess I just can't heal. Like, obviously that's an extreme version, but people do this in lesser ways, or some people do it in that exact way. Making that your story, like, well, I can't heal because this is what's poisoning me. You continue to repeat that story every day, that is your reality. The good news is your mind has a lot of control over how you feel and how you recover. So even if that is a problem up there, you get to choose to say, well, okay, I can't control what's going on up there. I have no control of that. So I'm gonna just change that story and stop repeating it to myself every day. I'm not gonna have a story for my own healing that is outside of my control. That doesn't make sense to have a story outside of control. You wanna control your own narrative. And it's not about what's actually true or not. What matters is what you get to choose to be true. What's your narrative? Well, my narrative is of, even if that is contributing to me, I can't control it. So I'm not even gonna allow myself to go down that thought pattern. I'm not gonna allow myself to go down and think that way because I can't change it. I'm gonna do what I can do to change. I'm gonna take this as a communication from my body that I need to support other modes of excretion to get whatever is in there that needs to come out. I'm going to nourish myself in all the ways that nourishment happens, which is not just food, by the way. And I'm going to support myself in the ways that I know I can control and that I know bodies need. And I'm not going to worry about the things I can't control anymore. Your mind is way more powerful than you're giving it credit for. Shadow work. This is something I do not broach in my consults until, several months in, because people get very triggered by this. I'm just going to bring this up. I'm not here to trigger anybody. I'm just going to bring this up because this is a foundational piece, and it's one I see all the time, and it's one I've recognized in myself in my own healing journey. So you're not alone. I've been through all of the things I'm talking to you about. Shadow work. So this idea of, okay, I've been trying to heal for 5, 10, 15 years, and I'm not for many reasons. But let me ask you this. What are you benefiting? What's the benefit of being unwell? What is the benefit of being chronically unwell? You have to ask these questions to yourself at some point. I asked it to myself and I got a lot of good answers. It doesn't mean that you consciously want to be unwell. It means that there are parts of you that benefit from being unwell, and you have to shed light. You have to bring light to those parts of yourself so you can be a more integrated person and stop creating those unconscious patterns. It doesn't mean that all of you wants to be unwell. Okay, I want to be clear about that. It just means that there are parts of you that are benefiting, and you have to be courageous enough to say, okay, what am I gaining? What parts of me are gaining? Something that maybe I enjoy. And sometimes it might not even be positive. Some people enjoy feeling shame because that's their origin story. They came into this world and they lived in shame because of their upbringing for whatever reason, unfortunately. And so it's a very familiar pattern. So they continue to seek out things that reaffirm that shame and that story. So you have to ask yourself, what's going on in my unconscious? What's going on in these other parts of me that could be benefiting in some way? And a great book is called Existential Kink. For those who really want to delve into this, it's a big piece. So really foundational things are sun, grounding, movement. You could go outside every day and just spend an hour or two doing these very things all together. Getting sun, it doesn't matter what the temperature is. You can dress accordingly. You can go out there, ground, get bare feet on the ground and do movement, actual real movement, not just like some light stretching or anything. Like work up, actually have a goal to increase your flexibility, to get stronger, to do push-ups. You have to build strength. You have to build flexibility. You have to maintain that if you want to continue to have any shot at recovering your body, right? You have to re-engage these foundational things that most people have gotten away from. Also, routine and stability, right? If someone is like, so one day they're waking up at 11 a.m. in the morning, and the next day they wake up at 7 a.m., then the next day they're waking up at noon because they just don't feel well. Like, you have to establish a sense of routine. Bodies love routine, okay? Especially when it comes to sleep in the mix. You want to sleep, want to go to bed at a similar hour, wake up at a similar hour. You want your body to really feel safe, right? That's whenever you're in that rest. That's whenever you're in those parasympathetics. You want to create that safety, that vessel of safety for your body to start to be able to recover and restore. Not to mention that sleep is really important at certain hours, and they've done studies on this for shift workers, and they've found that you have to go to bed at a decent hour to be able to get proper deep sleep for restoration, right? And that is right here with the circadian rhythm. So if you're up till 1 a.m. every night scrolling on your phone because you don't feel well, that is the last thing you want to do. You want to make sure in those times of not feeling well or trying to recover, especially in those times, that you're going, okay, I need to prioritize sleep. I need to go to bed at a decent hour. I need to wake up at a decent hour. I need to have a proper routine to create that for myself. And stability is really huge, which ties into relationships for me, because you want to have stable relationships. So if you're fighting with your husband or you're fighting with your partner all the time and creating mountains out of molehills whenever you're trying to heal, that's going to be difficult. You want to come home and be at a home where your relationship is part of your lifeblood, where you get support and you give support. You cannot forget, even if someone is unwell, they still have to be a supportive player in their partner's, children, whoever's life. You have to be able to give to receive. So it's a two-way street. Even if you're not well, or even for people who are unfortunately bedbound or just very, very chronically unwell, there's still ways to be supportive to other people. And I think a lot of times when people become unwell, it's like the whole house becomes about them. And although I understand that, you have to guide yourself back to thinking, okay, how can I be supportive to these people who are supporting me? Relationships are critical, and healthy relationships are critical. So you might need to create boundaries with certain people in your life, or I find, especially now in the modern world where people are all about boundaries, sometimes people have boundaries where they shouldn't. They think they need boundaries for, and they become really, really rigid. And so then they isolate themselves. They don't have great relationships because they think they have to have all these boundaries, and they're very inflexible. And then they're unwell too. I do not believe that people can generally heal more deeply if they don't have quality people in their life. People, again, that they are supporting and that they are receiving support for, and that they have this flexible relationship where they also allow other people to be themselves. They also are not hypercritical of others because they don't want someone being hypercritical or hyper rigid with them, right? You want to treat people how you want to be treated. And that ties into forgiveness. So many people who are unwell, they have this emotional boulder in their life where they still for 15, 20 years or 10 years haven't forgiven someone for something that happened so long ago. And Dr. Robert Morris said a really great thing in one of his videos. He said that it's not even up to you to forgive. I completely agree. So this idea that it's your power to forgive someone else, it technically isn't. But the issue is you're holding resentment, call it whatever you want. You're holding onto this energy where you have a blockage towards someone else and you don't want them in your life, and that might be fair to not want someone in your life. Maybe they don't need to be in your life, but you're holding on to something from years ago that you just need to release. You need to allow life to be what life is, which is this fantastic, mysterious, sometimes painful, complex experience that we all are in. And everyone's on their own journeys. So people need to be able to release these things that have happened to them in the past and to move forward. And that's where faith kind of comes in too. People who have faith or some type of spiritual grounding seem to be able to do that more easily. The people who are like atheists or don't have any type of faith, they really become resentful people and they hold grudges, and that is very, very difficult to keep in your body and try to recover. Making sure you're getting things that make human beings well: sun, grounding, movement, routine, sleep, having good relationships, forgiving people for when they mess up, letting it just be God is handling that or the universe is handling that, whatever you believe. It's not my job, that's their journey, and all I can do is know how to treat people with respect, even the people who have wronged me unintentionally or unknowingly, or maybe if it seems like they did it intentionally. What is good is it to hold on to it, and then to have something outside of yourself. And I could go into a whole topic about how helpful faith is over just like being like, I don't know what's going on out there. I don't know if I believe in God. I don't know if I have any belief in any kind of spiritual angle. To choose, like, I'm going to have faith that whatever this is, whatever this life is, that there is something higher here that is working for me, that is helping support me, that is guiding me, and I'm going to trust in that. I think people who have that do much better, not only in life, like they recover from very, very difficult hardships just in life, losses of jobs and people and grief, but they do better and they bounce back better whenever they go through like a healing crisis. If you're finding that you are so overwhelmed and you've done things for years and you can't seem to heal or recover, I would say look at some of these pieces, because these really are critical and they're overlooked, and people are just wanting the supplements, the protocols, the therapies.